Okay, we're live. There is a small delay on chat. If anyone's in chat and can hear me, please tell me. I always gotta make sure sound's working. And Jay, can you say something just so?
Hello, testing.
Fantastic.
Am I coming through as well?
Okay. Chat, please confirm if you can hear us. Anyone watching this as a VOD after the stream, this is for people in the future. Feel free to skip these first 4 minutes. We're just going to be waiting for people to come in. Megan says you're audible. Okay, don't skip this. Take it back. I take it back. Don't skip this part. Perfect.
Patience is a virtue. Unplug yourself. Spend 4 minutes and 12 seconds just sitting here staring at this charming little polygon.
There is a funny story with that. There is this this canon that I'm trying to make happen with my channel, where the voice come from the floating polygon, and the dragon is the mascot that we're trying to teach TTRPGs. It's a very
that's really cute.
It's a very convoluted headcanon, and it's hard because I use the dragon more than the polygon for everything.
Never call it. I love the convoluted headcanon. Akila in chat says that I'm louder than you.
Sure.
I have you right now turned up to 150% in my Discord, so.
Oh shoot. Okay, let me. I can play around with the knobs here. I think yeah. We should be a little bit more even now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, fantastic. For people who are still in chat, we have 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Please tell me in chat today's prompt. What's the coziest place your characters have stayed in?
Oh, that's cute.
I'm trying to think. For me, because I only play D&D games, it's usually happening when we're doing a long rest. Where we're in one of our characters' castles, and they have this nice big old circular guest room. And the session ended for the day, and we were like, okay, we're meeting up next week. If you want to keep talking in like text chat. So we had this little Discord channel where we all just started typing in text, and it was like this wonderful conversation that we'd never have time for when we're talking live. And it lent itself to a meaningful, nuanced conversation because everyone could just type out what they wanted to say, and it was perfect. So
I was the forever DM before I started making my own games, so I don't think there was ever a moment where I had a character who like had good logic. I think like it's been a rocky road for my poor assemblage of little critters. I don't know. Have you read Monster Hearts?
I have read a little bit of Monster Hearts. Haven't gotten into it though.
Totally. There's this piece of advice in the game that's treat your NPCs like stolen cars, which I think is phenomenal advice for like making a mess. If you want to like just have characters that just are disastrous, treating them like stolen cars is great advice. And I tend to treat my PCs when I play them that way also. So my poor little blorbos get absolutely demolished. Oh, really quickly before the stream technically starts, am I allowed to curse?
Of course.
Okay, cool.
We're adults.
Cool. Look, I'm on a lot of streams. Sometimes they're like sometimes one time I was told I get one F-bomb, which I thought was really funny. Like we're maintaining a PG-13 rating.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. But yeah, I totally agree. I have a philosophy that I tell my fellow players, hey, my first 10 sessions, my character is just a ball of Play-Doh. Anything you do will influence them heavily, and I will form my character around that. So please be terrible influences.
For sure. I went to a LARP earlier this month for the first time in ages, and my boyfriend was like, my boyfriend's the kind of person who writes up like paragraphs and paragraphs of lore, and he was completely flummoxed why I had like maybe 2 sentences on my LARP character, and I was like, I don't know, I haven't met her yet. Yaga hasn't done anything. Her name was I just made a Yazeba-esque old lady because I just was like, I want to do that twice.
Yeah, usually I tackle the backstory like 3-4 sessions in when I finally know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we're in this. Let me make sure the volume levels are still okay. Can you say something real quick?
Hello, I'm still here.
Wonderful. Welcome everyone. Welcome to episode, I think this is number 13 of 99 More TTRPGs. Today, I'm very excited to talk about this wonderful game. I've scrolled past the title. Let me scroll back up. Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
There's no right or wrong way to pronounce it.
Fantastic. And could you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Dragon. I am the co-creator and one of the writers, and also the publishing director on Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. I am also the creator of Wander Home, which you might be familiar with, or Sleepaway, which you are slightly less likely to be familiar with. I'm a queer disabled game designer, currently located in Philadelphia, who makes games about community, marginality, liminality, and the magic of the mundane. Pleasure to meet y'all.
What a wait a sec, I don't have a tag that cool. That's so sick. You have
I've got a whole practice spiel. I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, all right, let me run through it.
All right, here we go. That is so fun. I remember I just recorded a podcast episode where I told my co-host, hey, today I'm introducing you and you introduced me. And our intros were way cooler than we normally do because the other person has so much to say about the other.
I tend to come off as maybe having a little bit of an ego, or at least just because but it's mostly just that I know how to talk very confidently about myself in a way that tends to it's not genuine ego. It is just I spent enough time letting other people introduce me and then listened to what they said and then compiled it together.
I think that's totally fine. I think everybody's got to have a little bit of ego, a little bit of confidence, something to be proud of. That's totally valid.
Well, you don't want to publish your writing. You only publish your writing if you've got a little bit of an ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's not you have to on some level believe that your words are good enough for people to read, and that's hard.
Yeah,
I hate that. It's the hardest part of writing.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. For people who don't know, I'm just gonna pull up a couple credentials here as I tab over to Chrome real quick. First of all, if you're not familiar, this is Jade Dragon. This is their Twitter. They have published a good amount of work. They are part of Possum Creek Games, and Possum Creek Games has a number of things in their shop. If you haven't seen Wander Home at some sort of TTRPG book stand, this cover, first of all, is iconic. I've seen it truly everywhere, and people who introduce tabletop RPGs always have this somewhere in the screenshot, somewhere in the picture, because it is gorgeous. Everything about it is amazing.
A beautiful blue and green. Yeah, with the lovely little animal folk walking on it, done by Sylvia Bai. Absolutely, I think my favorite cover of anything I've ever been involved with in any way.
Yeah, and this came out, when was this? 2021? Is that correct?
2021. Yep.
Right, and then you come out right after a two-hitter, Indiegogo campaign for Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, which is, by the way, I'm sorry, 500 pages, 500 page PDF, 2 years after releasing Wander Home.
We started Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast in November 2019. We started Wander Home in April 2020. Wander Home, if anything, is a diversion from Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. It was my co-creator being we cannot do this for the next couple of months. Please, let's take a break from Yazeba's. And I went, okay, and wrote Wander Home.
And you punch out Wander Home as a side work? Yeah. That is wild to me. That is wild.
Yeah, my business partner Grubby describes my writing style as the elves in the cobbler's attic, where she'll wake up in the morning and I've left shoes at her door that are have been repaired. She's both pleased and miserable.
Yeah, and by the way, of course, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast successfully launched via Indiegogo, and in the meantime, released Yazeba's Online, which is a fully fleshed out pixel art essential mini world that has the entire furnishings and floors of the building of Yazeba's, which you can play on One More Multiverse. We'll probably look at this a little bit later in this stream, but what a feat! This I don't know if the gravity of this project is. It's unprecedented. This is unreasonable. It's unreasonably cool. 500-page PDF, fully
Unreasonable
fleshed
is
out.
definitely the word we've been throwing around. I think impossible is the other one, but it's the sort of thing that I'm never gonna do again at this scale, but it's incredible that we did it at all.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Like I'm just gonna show this GIF for now. I do have One More Multiverse open in another tab, but I'll fully load into it later because my computer's fan just whirs the second it's like, oh, OBS plus Chrome plus Discord plus
but does have a little bit of that.
But I will say, for people unfamiliar with this game, it has the official endorsement of a number of people, including Matthew Mercer and Brennan Lee Mulligan, people probably familiar in the TTRPG sphere. And it's just a gorgeous game, and we're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about what led to the creation of this game, how to start playing it, and how it lends itself to the greater scheme or world of game design. Because I'm on this forever quest of learning exactly how the pie is made. That's not the phrase. There's a phrase that's exactly how the. It's not how the cookie crumbles either. It's how the.
No. It's laws and sausages. It's really good to learn how laws and sausages are made. It's great.
That's the phrase.
Yeah. The phrase is we all go yippee yahoo when we learn how laws and sausages and tabletop RPGs are made. That's the exact saying.
Verbatim, exact. I'm gonna quote you on that. I'll put it on a tweet sometime later. I'm sure.
Yeah, slap that on like brainyquotes.com. Yeah.
Exactly. Get it on a mug. Get it on a T-shirt. Merch it. Done.
Redbubble the hell out of it. Yeah.
So. Sorry. How about we just start and explain what in the world is Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast? People who know nothing about it.
Yeah. Once upon a time, the world was cruel, and there was a witch who knew it well. And so she sold her heart away to build a house in the woods where the world could never find her. At first, she was safe, but in the long march of years, a friend arrived, and then another, and then several more, until her house was teeming with colorful faces and complicated lives. The house would come to be known as Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, and it would last for a very long time. Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast is a slice of life, legacy-inspired tabletop RPG about a preset cast of inhabitants of an interdimensional bed and breakfast who together form a magical found family as they take part in various little adventures, each of which place stickers inside the book that evolve the game further. You can play as characters including a frog knight turned chef, a devilish child left on the front doorstep, a trans girl runaway, and of course the heartless witch herself, Yazeba, along with 50 guests. There's a bunch of chapters to go on adventures with, and it is a game experience that I think is pretty holistically, like, it is both very easy to slide into and also very easy to go very deep into. We designed it so that it takes up to like 15 to 20 minutes to start to like learn how to play and start playing, and like, you know, and then like, you know, you can do your first session in like an hour and a half, but there is a lot to keep you entertained for a long time. Just because it has a shallow entrance does not mean that the bottom is shallow. And that's Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast.
Fantastic pitch. Well spoken, well practiced, I'm certain.
Yes, once again in the mirror, you know, like instead of gratitude lists, just workaholicing myself with pitches. But yes.
But the audience didn't get the conversation about talking to yourself in the mirror, so that there's a little bit less context.
Oh darn. Okay. Damn. I was just I was just making a. I'm not gonna lie. I truthfully don't practice that in the mirror. I just have said it so many times and like had to write it out for like whatever. But you know, it's a good pitch.
It is a fantastic
and
pitch.
It's a hard game to describe, so figuring out how to do it succinctly has been a really important task.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think when I saw this game, we first of all, fantastic title in that I felt like I knew exactly what the game could be about. I think would be the word that I want to use here. Right before, like, all I had to look at was the name, and even before I saw the cover, I'm like, I'll probably enjoy something like this. But as you've said before, this is a game that has a very straightforward intro. It has a very solid premise, and the rules to understanding how to play are pretty darn simple. Of the 500 pages, only about 44 are dedicated to actually, like, the sticks and stones of the foundation of the game, so to speak. And the rest is the people that you're going to meet, the stories that you're going to tell. There's early chapters, there's locked characters for later chapters as you unlock them. There's just a number. There's so many pages. I can't wrap around, like, it's like, hey, you only need to read like a tenth of this book to start, if even that, right? If even that, and then just play, and slowly things will open up to you. And I can see, even before getting past this table of contents, how this game is expansive. You know, you start with an early chapter and it kind of leads or branches you in a different direction, and it's a beautiful structure. I very much enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's we're thinking a lot about like legacy board games and choose your own adventure games, and like also just like kind of, you know, like we a lot of the architecture for like figuring out how to like onboard people really fast and then have a lot of stuff for them to explore comes out of video games, right? Like that kind of approach is really common in video games. And so it's like, how do we bring that, how does that show up in a tabletop RPG? How can we like tell this story that like we really want? You know, there's a lot that we want to tell. How do we create space for all of that in a way that lets it take, you know, breaths in between. You don't have to read a 500-page book to play this game, but all 500 pages can eventually come up and play when you want them to.
Of course. At what point did you at what point did you realize that there would be 72 chapters in terms of how many stories you can tell of this? Oh, even more. I'm sorry, there's more.
There's only 48. Don't worry. They're just in those chapter numbers are a story in themselves. But we realized, I think, pretty quickly, because I remember like I was like looking back through like early 2020 notes, and I found like a map of us being like, what if we wrote 36 chapters for this? And we had easily 36 ideas and then plenty more. And when we brought on other writers to the team, it became 48. And it was mostly a question of like, do we have 48 good ideas? And we do. And it was like, we weren't gonna write, you know, we didn't set out to make a big book. We set out to make the game the size it needed to be, and it turns out that the size it needed to be was big.
And that's totally valid. When I look at this book for the first time, right, I see something that I can get lost in. I see something that I can be like, I could play this for likely a very long time and not run out of things that, in theory, I don't have to come up with, that I don't have to scheme myself. And that's really exciting. It's honestly super cool. And there's many TTRPGs that are like, hey, here are the rules. Here's what you might be able to want to do. Go. You know, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, what if like that particular thread doesn't interest me? Do you have any like tips? And it's like, no, not really. This is the game. This is it. And not to necessarily compare the different approaches, but there is something about having this much content that is welcoming to people who don't yet feel comfortable about writing their own stories or coming up with prompts on their own. This is definitely something that I could feel myself give to somebody and be like, hey, all you got to do is read the intro and then pick a story that you like and you'll probably enjoy it, And sometimes I feel like I'm handing somebody like a rules book first and a game second, and that's a little bit trickier.
No, absolutely. I think what is oftentimes very hard, especially like you're coming from a more traditional background, a lot of games in that space effectively put a lot of expectations on the DM in terms of actually making the game happen.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, you are the machine the game runs on, and the game is like a set of tools to do that. And with Yazeba's, we really wanted a game that was first off like GM-less. There is a concierge, but the concierge does not fit kind of the roles you would expect of a GM. And then also, GM-less, but with structure. A lot of GM-less games can struggle from being very meandering. And like, this is a design challenge that I've had to face a lot as someone who designs predominantly GM-less games. And so it felt, part of what was important was like making a game that had the structure and the backing that like I could feel comfortable, as you said, like, handing this to any random person in my life and feeling like I'm not abandoning.
Yeah, there have been more than a dozen times where I've introduced somebody to D&D and I'm like, don't worry, I'll be there when you read it because you'll have questions, and that's difficult in itself. I can't just tell somebody, hey, play D&D and then come back when you're ready to play, like, because I know that it's not an easy read. It's not for someone who's never been in the space before. It's not a simple thing to learn how to play it. It's very rare actually when I can pass somebody a game and be like, hey, let's play this in a couple days. You can read the rulebook on your own and we'll meet up after, like that's not really something I can do with traditional tabletop battle map games. So
yeah, absolutely. And like, if you're running Yazeba's for a group of people, you don't even need them to read it. You can just, they can just show up knowing that it's Yazeba's bed and breakfast. They help you pick a chapter, and then they pick a character that speaks to them, and they're in, right? The rules are simple enough you can explain them at the table.
Yeah, exactly that. I think this would be a good segue into talking about an article that I saw that you wrote just a little bit, maybe a year ago at this point, or not even half a year.
2 years ago.
Yes.
2 years. It was like May 2021. Yeah.
So here I found. Oh yeah, May 2021. There is a wonderful blog essay. Would you classify this as an essay, so to speak, or is it?
Yeah, it's a blog post / article / yeah.
And it kind of touches upon how you have perhaps learned to approach designing a game. There's a number of short stories here, short analogies, or almost parable like little segments. I think what I gleaned from this that struck me the most, one of my like most favorite sentences from this essay was that kids will come up with a game better than anything you could have told them about. Something along those lines.
Yes. I think that every single game, I like to joke, has to pass what I call in my head kind of the freeform test, which is like, could we be having more fun if we were just like goofing around ourselves? And games generally pass that test. Games have an obligation, like, it is not an impossible test to pass. It's actually rather easy to be more fun than freeform. But you have to like have trust in the fact that the players by default are able to know what is best for them. What they're turning to you for help with is negotiating a shared space that can be good for them, and they're trusting you to make something that they'll enjoy. And I think that that kind of, you know, humbleness and like mindset is like an important like understanding the players at the table are the collaborators for sculpting the game into a thing that is best for them.
Right.
It's not you know, there's not a hierarchical relationship. You are, you know, handing them an environment for them to play in.
Perfect. Yeah. Exactly that. When you give a game to a table, it's not some sort of like, hey, you must study this and become students of this book, right? It's like, hey, here's a fork and a spoon, or here's a bat and some Play-Doh, or like here's some grass
and some monkey bars. Yeah,
exactly. Like, and then the idea is like, may it serve you in the story that you would like to tell, you know? There is I have a group of friends that I've been playing with for over 4 years now, and we have kind of a rhythm and a genre that we very much enjoy. So when it comes to branching out from D&D, I approach it with the mindset of which of these games lends itself to the type of stories we tend to enjoy. Which one has the tools that can facilitate things that we already know we're going to like. Because there's a certain point where it's just like, okay, I don't need the rules anymore. We figured out how exactly to use these. Maybe we only use 3 out of the 4 things on the table, but it is still a wonderful time, and that's all I can ask for from a game, right? That the time spent together is happy and pleasant and memorable, you know?
And for me, oftentimes is like what I'm motivated by is I really look for games that I think offer something, like bring something really unique to the table. Like I'm oftentimes seeking out like what kind of has what has something to say that I maybe haven't heard before, or has a toy to like, you know, I've been on enough jungle gyms that at this point, when I look at a jungle gym, I'm looking out for like what's the weirdest one I can find. And I think like part of making a game is understanding that you and I, you know, are looking for different things from a game. We are 2 of, you know, conservatively 100 different desires that might be brought to the table. And a game should be able to like hold space and invite those desires, those, you know, competing and sometimes conflicting desires, without compromising itself for them. But like, you know, there should be a game that can see that you are looking for a thing that can tell a story that is, you know, within the wheelhouse of the stories you and your friends like to tell. It can see that I'm looking for, you know, maybe someone else is looking for a game that can like get out of the way, or a game that can simulate a world for them, a game that can, you know, model balance and competition. You know, there's, you know, a game can, you know, what is the game that we're looking for, and the game should be able to have many different things like that.
Of course. And that's why there's so much room in the space to design these games, because I can pick five of my friends and we all hang out together. But if I wanted to play a game with each of them individually, I know they each have very particular things that they enjoy about games, and the selections I'd make for them in terms of the games that I'd like them to play would be entirely different. And even that dynamic, having individual games that they might like one-on-one, when we come together as a group, there's something that we collectively enjoy, and that changes, right? Looking for the right game or the right tool or the right framework or sandbox is part of the challenge, and honestly part of the fun. Because I've run into a lot of games that are just well beyond my imagination. Like I just read things and I'm like, I would have never in 100 years thought about that. I would have never considered that as something that I could toy around with or play with or be inspired by. And it's so fun to dig into all of these writers and all of these designers' minds and poke and prod about how their clock ticks, and it's a wonderful thing. But yes,
absolutely.
Also,
demented, you know, but delightful.
Also, I love this line here. The floor of lava is the perfect game. It has a compelling fantasy. It invites a new way to explore the world that the players may not have considered before. And since it uses procedural generation to create its levels, the meta is very dynamic. Beautiful. What a beautiful sentence. This is actually like, the way you phrased this and the bullet points you gave, I'm just like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's the magic. That's the magic of the game. And there's no...
Tabletop is the perfect game. It's the perfect game. Sorry, tabletop fans. Sorry, Edition Wars. You've all already lost to The Floor is Lava.
The Floor is Lava has been and will be the perfect game, and there's nothing we could do about it, honestly. Yes.
Agreed.
Also with this article, I know we've spent now 30 minutes on stream and have not discussed past the table of contents, but there is a beautiful phrase in this metaphor about a giant and the flowers, where the giant is a representative of, if you can read this on your own, of course, at opossumcreek.medium.com, but it's a metaphor about the giant skeleton being a place where people could plant their flowers. And at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily the giant skeleton that was dictating where flowers were being planted. It was the people who looked towards it and saw how those flowers were being arranged in their own unique, visible ways. Can you expand on this just a little bit? Because I feel like I'm almost there, but not quite.
This metaphor I really enjoy. But what I'm effectively interested in is, oh god, am I about to use a different metaphor to explain this one?
By all means, please.
In playwriting, if we're Shakespeare fans instead of tabletop fans, and we have Hamlet, and we have the script of Hamlet as it is written, right? We have the SparkNotes Guide to Hamlet or whatever. That is a art object. That is an instance. That is the game text. That's the giant. And it contains kind of this structure that we exist within, that we are limited by, that we allow ourselves to be limited by, right? We don't want, there is no force keeping us limited to Hamlet, right? There is no force keeping us limited to the giant. There's no force if we want to, Shakespeare will not emerge as a ghost and strike us down if we gender bend Hamlet. Unlike some actual playwrights, Samuel Beckett is quite a misogynist, if you ever want to look into that, by the way, not to spiral off into another topic, but he banned Belgium from producing Waiting for Godot because they gender bent it. A production gender bent it, and he banned the entire country. Anyway, regardless, back to Shakespeare. We're allowed to change it, and we're allowed to make it our own, and then additionally, there are many things that Shakespeare simply does not tell us, right? Shakespeare does not tell us how to set the stage. Beyond, kind of maybe a piece or two here or there, props that are implied to exist. Shakespeare does not tell us how to carry ourselves, right? Shakespeare does not tell us the emotions of, Shakespeare gives Hamlet these words, but it is up to us to plunge his emotional depths. And so each individual production of Shakespeare, each individual production of Hamlet, is an art object. It is a separate art object from the script, in the same way that a book and a TV adaptation are two separate art objects, right? These scripts are effectively, they're building upon, the productions are building upon the script, but they're separate art. They're separate pieces of art. And we think of the game text as being all-encompassing. And I really want people to think of it as the foundation for creating your own art. That you are, and as a game designer, you are making your own work of art, but you are building a work of art for other people to expand upon. You are building half of a game. You are building a structure for there to be game, which is different from building a whole game, right? Being a DM who's running your own system and being a DM is much more like building your own game than what a game designer does.
Right. So are you familiar with RP from Fara Games? He wrote Stoneburner. He wrote Firelights.
I don't believe so. Which is, tell me more.
He has this wonderful thing where he basically releases his games and has an SRD that has basically the entirety of it. as a kind of the framework for other people to build their games on top of. And his mechanics are very unique but very straightforward and very simple, and just people just kind of pile on building that. And as I was I wanted to jump in on one of his game jams and try to design a game of my own, which I've never done before, of course, and I realized how ridiculously tricky that is when you've never done it before. But one of the things I kept running into was like, okay, I'm making this game, I know how it starts, I know the premise of the story, should I write how it ends? Like, do I just put that on paper, like how I expect your game to end? And I was thinking about it, I'm like, do I play any game looking for how the game's supposed to end? Like, I'm sure some games outline is like the game ends when this happens, but never like, it's the difference between TTRPGs and novels is that the ending is not written yet, and that's the fun in it. The ending is not yet there.
May I spoil? This is such a strange question. Can I spoil a tabletop game? For
absolutely,
you?
Absolutely.
So for those in the chat, I'm going to talk about 10 Candles by Stephen Dewey.
Cool.
A phenomenal game. If you plan on playing it, I do advise you to, like, I don't know. I maybe this is still good if you still plan on playing it, like, it won't ruin your experience. But if you're spoiler averse and you want to play this game in person specifically, you know, I'm about to spoil the ending.
All right.
Which is
I'll put a timestamp here in the VOD. You can skip ahead of this later, but please continue.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So in 10 Candles, it is a game where, among other things, you know, right, you are playing around a table lit by 10 candles. As each candle goes out, by mechanics or by wind or what have you, the room gets darker and darker, and then when the last candle goes out, it's a survival horror game, and when the last candle goes out, everyone dies. And there's a ritual where the players are able to establish truths, where one player says, "These things are true, the world is dark," and then players provide truths, and the final truth is always, "and we are alive." Now, when there's one candle left, the only truth left is, "These things are true, the world is dark, and we are alive." When the last candle goes out, the GM says, into the room that is dark, after everyone has died, says, "These things are true, the world is dark," and then surreptitiously hits play on a recording of the message the characters left at the beginning of the game, and it just plays through the messages everyone had left at the start of the game. And after that, there is a silence. And in the rules of the game, it tells you to let that silence hold until someone at the table breaks it, right? Until someone like coughs or fidgets or the mood snaps, you turn on the lights, the game is over. But the game says that silence at the end of the game, after that is the point of the game, says the rules. The entire purpose of the game is a 3 to 4 hour long ritual exercise to build up to the conditions to lead to that moment of silence after the recording. I think that's really cool. I think that endings in games are hard because it is in a lot of ways about how do you resolve the space you've built. And in a lot of ways that resolution is almost the point. Maybe not as explicitly there, but the perfect game must end. A game isn't fun if it goes on forever. And the ending, it doesn't have to be outlined, but the structure, there should still be kind of this way for things to end in a way that is satisfying. And like, even if it's not necessarily you inscribing it in stone, that moment at the end is really like kind of the source of where a lot of magic can happen if you let it.
Right, of course. Yeah. And I think many games do this very, very well. Many games do this very, very well, where the conclusion of a game, kind of like putting a cap on a full story, is one of the most cathartic things you can do, right? Mm-hmm. I've had very emotional campaign ends where it's just like, oh, well, we're kind of wrapping up years of work, years of story here. And it's just kind of I think it's different for everybody who experiences that. I think the art of a great game is that it lends itself to so many different stories, endless amounts of stories. And while like there might be building blocks or steps or foundations that are similar for all of them, the ability to leap off and make the decision that whatever story you're telling is better than what's written on the page, and have the confidence in doing that, or have a game that encourages having the confidence to do that, is a wonderful experience, a wonderful thing.
Absolutely agreed. I think that games are wonderful because they're both sacred and profane. They are both magic spells and also goofy fun times with friends. And game design is a little bit like telling people about a new variation of tag you came up with, and also a little bit of being an occultist teaching people about how to summon angels, right? There's kind of this blurry little spot in the middle where the game designer ends up writing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
which is maybe very self-aggrandizing, but
no, it does a little bit of both energies. It's a unique and wonderful thing. I think there's games, and then there's tabletop games, and I think there's a different magic bespoke by both, and it's not one's not better than the other, but it's certainly something that I've learned to fall in love with, which is why I'm doing this and talking to you and learning about this.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
How about we introduce people to how to play Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast?
Man, yeah, probably we should.
We should probably get to that. So this is the opening.
So I want to talk to you a little bit because we can go through the Yazeba's online tutorial. That is really equipped to teach people how to play Yazeba's online specifically. Like, it has a lot of things about like using the interface.
Sure.
Is that where we want to be, or do we want to discuss what it is to get into this game, and I can maybe, kind of walk you through the setup real quick?
I think if you could walk me through the setup, I'd really appreciate that. I think if we have that as our understanding, then if we jump into online, we'll just intuitively understand what it lends itself to.
I quite agree. But so here we are at Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. I've already read that little intro text. There's a little bit more I have to tell you. There's a big sign on the front door, which you were kind enough to scroll by earlier. No soliciting, trespassing, romancing, stooping, stitching, unnecessary small talk, welcome. There's a second sign underneath that says room for everyone. It is always September 15th inside the bed and breakfast. That's Yazeba's favorite day of the year. It is most frequently near the cozy village of Ailridge, somewhere on the East Coast, sometime in the 20th century, and every room is always next to every other room. It is always convenient to the matter at hand, and there's always enough room for any number of guests, except for Gertrude. This is a game. Yes, there's that wonderful sign. That I love it. Yes. My boyfriend threw it together last minute because Grubby, my business partner and the layout designer, was like, if you want it in the book, you have to help me with the layout. And we were like, okay. The dramatis personae. These are the residents. There are 6 of them. We will choose one of them later to embody during the chapter, and if none of them speak to us, we can always pick a guest. But before we choose them, we will choose a chapter. So my question for you is, what mood are we feeling? Are we feeling, we're not going to actually play, but if we were to play, you and I, would we want to do something more relaxed, more pensive, more frantic, or more eerie?
I think something relaxed would be nice. Just something.
That sounds good. Let's hop up to the table of contents real quick. And
sure. Scroll up. I am on page 6 right now. Page 5.
It's not updating on the stream, but we'll get there in a moment.
Yeah, it takes like 10-15 seconds, I think.
Yeah, I've been peeping over your shoulder on YouTube. So of those early chapters, do you see one that speaks to you? One that seems to capture your attention?
How about Gone Fishing?
Gone Fishing is great. It's great. It's relaxed. It's perfect. So let's hop on over.
Okay.
you'll wanna click on it, and we'll go to that chapter, and you'll see that chapters tend to be 4 pages. There is there's the cover page. There's a bit of the introductory story, which kind of sets what's going on in the chapter, kind of thematically and narratively. And then there are generally 2 pages, sometimes a bit more, of rules for the chapter. And the thing about Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast is that the rules change with each chapter. And so you don't have to, the structure of the game is determined entirely by the chapter you've chosen. And in this case, we're going fishing, and there are rules to simulate fishing, rules that, give certain fish more valuable, like make them more or less valuable. We write up fish on a bunch of index cards, then shuffle them around on the table, and that's our pile of fish to fish from. We have bingos and whoopsies, which are the things that our characters are good at and the things our characters are bad at. The different chapters have different rules for what those mean mechanically. But we will have those. We'll get some extra ones maybe, and we'll use them to tell our story. And once we got that, we each pick our characters. We read the opening fiction, and then we get to hop right into the rules. This chapter tends to take about an hour. It would probably take a bit more if it was just the 2 of us playing, because it's a chapter where it's paced based on the actions you take, and so it might end up taking a little bit more time with 2 people. But that's kind of the structure. And at the end of it, we'll get a soggy old boot, as you see. Nice. And when we have a soggy old boot, we can go and stick it onto a shelf, which is found, I believe, on page 160 or around there if you want to hop down. And let me see if I don't know if I'm right. Did I land it? Did I nail it?
It says Yazeba study.
Yes, that's a shelf. That'll do.
Oh, cool.
So you got a soggy old boot, which will be a sticker. You plop that into Yazeba's in this case Yazeba's study. You could put it anywhere in the bed and breakfast. You stick that in. It'll be the size. It's the size of that square. Once you've got 3 in there, you get a special bonus, and then you can start sticking stickers into the rest of the slots.
Look at that. That's so cool.
And so every time we play a chapter, it changes it. And then finally, if you want to do me a favor and hop up to a resident, if you want to go to page 50 in the PDF.
Oh, hey kid.
Hey kid, wonderful. So Hey Kid, one of the characters of Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, Rambunctious Devil Child, when you're playing them, you'll be taking notes on the character sheet. You'll be, maybe adding to their comic book or whatever. And at the end of the chapter, you'll be able to modify their stats, because this character in particular has stats. And so each time, maybe, this session you play Hey Kid, next session I play Hey Kid. But the Hey Kid that we're playing with remains the same. And so we can get stickers to add to their sheet to change them up. But even as each of us does their own take on Hey Kid, their arc kind of goes beyond any of us. The arc of the Bed and Breakfast goes beyond any of us as we do these little episodic chapters that unlock various materials. And so from your point of view, you come sit down at my table, we play for an hour and a half together. Maybe that's the only time you ever play Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. But the notes you took, the choices you made, the stickers you collected, go on to change my version of the game forever.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, that's so... Hold on. Wait. I'm wrapping my head around this, because I just witnessed 2 very cool things. First of all, let's do this. Go back to the shelf real quick. The idea that you can finish a chapter and you get a memento of sorts, and you put it onto one of these specific shelves. And by the way, this is not the only shelf. There's also this shelf. There's also this shelf. And as you fill in these shelves, you unlock more chapters. Immediately, my single player RPG like completionist brain was like, oh, there's so much to do. There's so much we could do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And as basically as you continue telling the story, there's so much. I'm looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
There's 6 possible chapters you can unlock just from filling up very specifically Yazeba's study. And then you have these other shelves over here that have all these slots, and they open up different stories. Oh my gosh, I'm like, and then I pop over to Hey Kid, and as we're reading this, obviously you said that you can have these like 1 to 2 hour sessions with certain people, and I've noticed here in my stats you can increase stats, but if the mature stats maxes out, turn to the Hey Teen section, that evokes something wondrous in me. That is a fantastic little mystery that I could just look at and be like, wait, that's probably something. And the idea that you could run this game as a DM and have that massive book. I don't know if anybody's seen the screenshot of the mock-up of the physical book of this, which is like huge. It's massive. It's 500 pages. But to have that as a DM and be able to tell these stories for months or years and have different people come and go into your stories and influence the direction of these characters, and just slowly but surely fill out your book with these markers and these pictures and these stickers. That's so cool. To think of like what is traditionally considered a handbook to play a game becomes this sort of diary where these stories have happened. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
What a wonderful thing. Is that a normal thing? Do you see that a lot? Because I don't.
No,
I gotta say, I treat the handbooks and textbooks of TTRPGs that I have as very pristine, as to be kept very clean. So to mark up your books purposefully.
And we have tools. We've made a thing called the Ledger that we're going to be selling alongside, and that will come with the box set, where that's like a black and white kind of like a version of the book that you can kind of have separate to mark up as you play, if you care about the pristine quality of your hardcover. Like, I totally understand people who don't necessarily feel comfortable going right into the book and like covering it with stickers. I personally believe that my own personal philosophy is that part of the fun is the transformation of this book into your heart, right? That our culture has this bizarre fascination with virginal purity that extends into the objects we own. This idea that like something is more expensive if it's less cared for, like less loved, right? That some things are only valuable if they're unblemished. Whereas to me, I love blemished objects. My tarot deck is made up of cards from 100 different tarot decks. My Magic the Gathering cube is covered in stickers and like label printouts that I've done to like edit the cards. I have a deep love for showing care for an object by putting, element like by turning it into my own, right? That anyone can go out and buy Yazeba's bed and breakfast, but the book in my hands is mine. No one can question that, right? It is, if you flip through it, you can see, I know the story behind every single marking on the pages, and that, I think, is a very special feeling.
Yeah, it's wonderful. There's a question in chat by AJ Weber. Would you end up playing the same chapters over and over again with the same people? I wonder how to keep that feeling fresh long term.
If you're doing like a campaign that's like you and your buddies and not really anyone else, generally in my experience, the rate of unlocking new chapters is such that you don't really end up playing like the same chapter over and over. That said, the chapters are all designed to be like intensely replayable, especially based on they are effectively small games. And things like especially chapters like Birthday for Gertrude or Gone Fishing or God, there's a number of chapters that feel to me very much like you could play this 3 different times with the same group of people. Probably not back to back. That I think like you want to like give yourself space. But if you will find chapters that you're like, oh, that was so much fun, that are fun to revisit. In the same way that like like it doesn't like the story can happen multiple times. Like Gertrude can have multiple birthdays. And it will play out feeling very different every time. There are also elements built into the game, such as Monday the Fairy Dream Merchant, who I think might be on page 79 of the PDF.
If you get this exactly right, I'd be very impressed.
I am literally just trying to remember these off the top of my head. Like, I do not have the PDF open in front of me. I'm taking ballpark shots.
I see here Frantic Mood is at the top of this one.
Oh, I went too far, damn it. Try 60 something. Regardless, Monday's one of the starting guests. And Monday, when their journey fills up, I went too far. When Monday's journey fills up, they get to offer someone their greatest desire in exchange for their heart. And if you accept the trade, there's a contract that you can have your character sign that fundamentally changes everything they're doing, it completely reworks the entire vibe of the game based on who happens to be the person who is playing Monday, who's playing the character they've been offered, what deal they've accepted, and things like that can really recolor chapters, right? Like if you're playing Gertrude's birthday, but Gertrude sold her heart in order to become a celebrity, the vibe, the entire vibe of the chapter completely changes.
Yeah, I could imagine something like that that's so open-ended could be played around with and made really interesting. What is Oh, here's the contract. I'm reading it now. When my track fills up, I'll offer a resident what I think they want in exchange for their heart. If they say no, I'll erase my track and remain. But if they say yes, and I buy a resident's heart, I'll have that resident sign the heartless contract, page 460. The higher the page number, the more intimidated I am. I give them a new bingo and whoopsie related to their desire and leave the bed and breakfast. Oh, so people can just leave. Like people can be permanently like out of the story. Yep. Wild. Crazy. Makes sense though. I mean,
guests are the ones that do that. There are residents who are mainstays and like much more main characters, and they're guests who, some of whom just stick around perpetually, like the rabbits in the garden who wear little outfits. Some of whom are oftentimes departing or coming back. There's a guest who comes back whenever the concierge hosts a movie night. There's a guest who comes back whenever the concierge moves to a new house. There's a guest who can come back if you press a flower into the pages of the book. Things like that.
It's crazy. I feel like this is one of those games where I could play for a very long time and still run into things that I've never seen before.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sometimes that even happens to me, right? Because there are 3 other writers on the team, and every it's rare now, but there was every once in a while I will stumble across something and be like, I didn't know we wrote that. Either I did in a fugue state, or one of the other 3 people on the team did. What?
And that's got to be exciting for you to just look at this book and find something like a little nugget that you didn't know was there.
Oh yes, absolutely.
This is something I've heard about. I think someone on Twitter like screenshotted it and said they loved it. The My Journey of Rag and Bones.
Oh yes.
So the progression track of this guy is once my track fills up, I'll steal Yazeba's spellbook and cast the Apocalypse incantation and bring about the end of the world itself. Then I'll leave the bed and breakfast. Everyone else can consult when the world ends within the forbidden envelope. At any time, anyone can clear my entire track and force me to start over from the beginning.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
So Rag and Bones is that ineffectual Skeletor style villain who is always scheming but never gets anywhere. Right. And to model that, his success is entirely dependent on the generosity of the other players to let him succeed, because he's so incompetent. The only way he would actually succeed is through like just like a general negligence, or like a sneaky player.
Oh, like, oh,
But
we
yeah,
forgot he's here kind of situation.
yeah, exactly. So like, and I'll never have Ragamuffin erase his journey. There is rules for when the world ends in the Forbidden Envelope that can come up and play.
Yeah. I will say that when I downloaded the files of this PDF from Yazeba's online, there were two files, the PDF and a folder for the Forbidden Envelope.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that is certainly something that I'm curious about. Probably shouldn't touch it, but
there's a README in there if you want to be warned not to touch it.
Got it.
Especially because there is also a booby trap in there. If you read the Forbidden Envelope too early, you can get cursed. So.
Oh wow. Crazy.
Yeah, for you, and it'll have game impact.
But yeah, can you? By the way, can you shout out the artists that worked on this? Because
oh boy, there are a number of fantastic artists on this page. Though I will shout out Val Wise, who did all of the guest and resident illustrations.
Oh, wow.
So the beautiful character portraits you see are all by Val Wise. And then I also want to shout out oh goodness, hold on, I want to make sure I get Shannon's last name right. Just shout her out. Shout them out, excuse me. But I do want to shout out oh goodness, Shannon Kao, Kao, who did all of the mechanical illustrations. So the stickers and the tracks, all of these individual tracks are by Shannon. Shannon spent the past year basically toiling away, making a 1 bajillion of these cute little illustrations.
Wait, I'm only noticing now that they all have this 5-pronged shape in them. Are these
just those two? There are variable different shapes for different journeys. Lady Sherry and Yola are gay, in my opinion. My headcanon is that they're gay. And also their journeys have this lovely mirroring.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth between these pages pretty quickly.
Oh no, you're so good. We wanted things to be like somewhat simple, so like 5 was kind of the default we found for a lot of these like repetitive journeys that we wanted to like go off once every other session. But other tracks have varying lengths, and most guests and some residents and lots of chapters have illustrations.
Yeah.
Also, Pika, you get cursed in real life. You get cursed in the game if you open the Forbidden Envelope too early. You do not get cursed in real life unless you consider unlocking new game content to be getting cursed. Which it might be. I think it kind of is. It's very goofy game content.
Yeah, I don't... Every now and then there's a game that I cover that I'm like, there is zero chance I can fully encapsulate what this game is about in one stream. This is one of those games. But also, I feel like I very truly understand how this game plays out, which is nice, which is good. Sometimes I'm left guessing. I'm like, okay, how would this game play out at the table? But for me, reading this, pretty clear cut, pretty great.
Yeah, and like as mentioned, it was really important to us that like the metaphor I keep using is a really shallow entrance and a really deep fall, where it's like I want to make sure that any individual session of Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast is as simple and clear as possible, right? I want everyone to be able to sit down at a table and get it fast, get into it fast, have fun with it quick, and have it resolved in far less time than a one-shot normally is.
Right.
But I want you to be able to really go. I want to be able to like. We want it to really, get inside your mind. If we can really, we want it to be able to do a lot of things that maybe other games can't, or maybe other games don't end up doing. And we want it to be really deep and to really kind of catch you in a way that maybe you're not expecting. And to do that, like, as the concierge, if you stick around a table, right, like any individual session is short, but when you stick around the table and you watch people play, like 10, 20 chapters, the game changes very fundamentally, and by the end of it, it's you've built up all this kind of sedimentary meaning that informs these very shallow entrances.
I'm also noticing every single chapter is like a different variation of a game, which
Yes, the chapters each have different rules. Like, I say that and people think that I mean that like they have the same base structure and different add-ons, but there are some chapters that use coins, there's some chapters that use tokens, there's some chapters that use decks of cards. There's one chapter which uses dice, like D20. There's chapters that maybe use multiple of those things. There's a lot of like each, like there are some chapters which we joke we could have published on Itch.io as their own game.
Right. I feel like if I was writing this, I'd be like, why don't I just publish this as 50 different games? But I mean, yeah, what was the ideation process of that like? How did you guys decide this is a good enough, so to speak, good enough game for a singular chapter? Was there
we have patterns that help, where we created 4 rule sets that were the 4 moods that we turn to. Ooh, you found a secret chapter. That we turn to when we want to be able to they kind of follow a pattern, like the witch is missing shadow is eerie, gone fishing is relaxed, and these patterns kind of give us a framework to build the mechanics. But so some of these are just kind of like iterations on a framework that we set up, right? Where it's like, Witch is Missing Shadow and Longest Night of the Year and Lights Out and Hey Kid Goes A-Guysing all have big similarities in their mechanics, and if you learn the rules for one, the rules for the other ones will be really easy to catch on to really fast.
Got it.
And so the earring mood is that like reliable structure, but we still wanted variations in each one. We wanted them to feel like separate experiences, and then later on in the game, later eerie chapters can substantially deviate, right? Where these earlier eerie chapters are using a deck of playing cards, but there's one that takes that deck of playing cards and turns it into a tarot mechanic. Right. There's one that uses it to simulate a car crash in a very dark chapter. There's one that uses it to explore this like ancient mansion. It's very, you recontextualize the mechanics in very intense and different ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's just blowing my mind that there's so much thought put into every single one of these chapters. Part of my brain says like, okay, we figured out the foundations. All we got to do is type up story and then just plug in this mechanic over and over and over and over again until the game's over, But like to view every single chapter as like essentially a different game, very much has that playground feel. It's like, oh, do you want to play tag? Do you want to play like wiffle ball? Do you want to climb a tree? Things like, do you want to like paint something? Like it's that energy that's just like you never really know what the day holds for you, which is
absolutely. And I think it opens up a lot of really interesting space for fan content where when designing the game, there were a number of very intentional choices we made around limiting ourselves, believe it or not, if you look at this and you believe there was any limiting involved. But one of the big ones was that we kept to this pattern of like sets of mechanics to iterate on pretty heavily, even as we kind of go into very different games. They're coming from 4 base structures. And there are obviously many more than 4 possible game designs you can have. And so a lot of the fan content, some of my favorite fan content, are people taking just new structures and plugging them into Yazebas. And it's like, what if to play Yazebas you used just a totally different set of rules than the ones in the book? What if you took, what if you took a totally different game's rules and you plugged them into Yazebas? What if you made a Yazebas chapter that you settled over Among Us, right? Like things like that, to varying degrees of sincerity. Are really interesting kind of exploratory space.
Yeah, I think that'd be so cool to have people be like, okay, well, we decided that to resolve this game, we actually just played The Floor is Lava. and that worked out.
Yeah, yeah.
It goes back
It
to that
just,
mentality that like you can't tell somebody what the most fun way to play their game is. Like they'll know.
Here's the thing about Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast that I think is a little tricky for a lot of game designers. But normally when we think of a tabletop game, we assume the rules are the most important thing. I think that's a really natural instinct to have. But in Yazeba's, the rules are not the most important thing. The rules can be whatever. The bed and breakfast is the most important thing. If you're playing any game as Yazeba's characters, you're playing Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. It's a game that isn't about the rules of the game. The rules of the game are in the same way that in Dungeons and Dragons you can swap out settings and swap out characters and all this stuff, but the rules kind of serve as this universal mediator. In Yazeba's, you can swap out rules, you can swap out mechanics, but the house remains the universal.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. just dropping that nugget of knowledge real quick. That's
toss it in.
It's the setting stays the same, but the way to play is different. Rather than the way to play stays the same, but the setting. Interesting. Cool. I really enjoy that. That's actually really fun.
Yeah.
For anyone watching the stream, obviously there's no way we could page through all 500 of these chapters. I've showed a couple on screen, hopefully showing you how every chapter is notably different. How about we bounce over to One More Multiverse and poke around there just a little bit?
Let's go poke over there real quick. So One More Multiverse, for those who don't know, is a virtual tabletop like Roll20, like Foundry, that specializes in this Stardew Valley looking way of playing tabletop RPGs. We reached out to them a few years ago about doing some kind of partnership with Yazeba's because Yazeba's is such a physically tactile game in real life, and we could just post the PDF up online, but that is, I think, useless for people who want to play online, and the past few years have taught me that online play is really, really important. So we worked with One More Multiverse to create this version of Yazeba's that really supports online play and captures that tactile sensation of play. Even if you are, it's a virtual tabletop that can give you the feeling of the tactile nature of the book instead of having to kind of fall onto, just here's a PDF. Oh, you've got a guest that requires you to draw? Figure it out, dummy.
Yeah. Also, this is beautiful. This is like this whole set. I can't imagine the amount of work that went into making this. Like, this is such a ridiculous amount of detail. Because I was part of the beta for One More Multiverse. I tried making my own world. It is endlessly not time consuming, I suppose, but just like there's so much you can do, and the layout of this, every single corner of this screen opens up to something that I don't yet understand, and to be able to turn a 500-page PDF into this within the span of however time you were working on it actually blows my mind. So
yeah.
This is the tutorial for anybody who wants to know. There's these speech bubbles up top that helps teach you how to navigate One More Multiverse as you play.
It tells the story. It also, as you go, tells the story of Gertrude's arrival to the bed and breakfast. Gertrude being the closest thing the story has to a protagonist, a trans girl who ran away from home and is now currently stumbling through the splashy crashy rain, miserable on her birthday, trying to find a place to spend the night. And that is the framing for the tutorial. I love the tutorial. I think it is a really useful way to learn the multiverse structure. Can I invite you to the first floor of the house, where I think we can really experience and have some interesting experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. How do I get there?
We're gonna skip the we're gonna do something, a little thing we're not supposed to do, but we're gonna skip the tutorial. Let me show you how. If you go up to the top left, there's the multiverse symbol itself, that like M with a check. If If you click on it, there should be like a return to home,
Oh, okay.
and we're gonna leave the tutorial behind.
Sure.
If you want, also you can invite me to your multiverse world, and I can hop in there and show you around.
I truly don't know how to. I couldn't.
If you're, are you on the main page? Do you see the like the landing page with the download PDF and
Let
the
me see. Let me see. I think
yeah,
in
go to verse landing, yeah. Or sorry,
oh
I'm having to try and direct you from
no, don't,
the delay lag.
I'll
Yeah,
get to first landing. Give me a
go to
second.
verse landing. Yeah, that'll get you there. There we go. Thank you all for being patient.
I'm
We
here.
are
I'm here. I
doing
made it.
We made it. Okay. So if you go into you go in there. I'm trying to remember how to do this. You know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna invite you to my One More Multiverse.
Sure. It seems the way easier.
I think that'll be. I agree. I think that'll be quite a bit easier. Let me go and find my link.
I'll just stay on this.
Lying around.
I'll just stay on this beautiful landing page until we get there.
Let me just give me one. Oh wait, if you're here, click invite players.
I'll click invite players. Oh, and I just send you this link?
Yeah, send me that link.
What the? That easy?
Yep, that easy.
Dang.
All right, let me get in there. Let me mute this thing so you don't all hear my multiverse coming through as well.
What happens now?
I'm going to let's see. I'm going to where are we gonna go? We're gonna go to the first floor living area. I've gotten used to this at this point. And if you want to click play game,
oh, I just kind of I'm present.
I brought you now. Welcome, if you will, to the first floor of the bed and breakfast.
Whoa.
Let me be someone to show you around.
I'll just be Gertrude and I pick up the stick before.
Yeah, you can drop it if you click X, but you know, it's a good stick. Hello, here I am.
What the?
Welcome. So if you want to, this is the first floor. We're in the dining room right now. If you click, there's some objects which if you mouse over, they have little lore snippets attached.
Oh no, wait. I'll put it
Let it go. Click X. Let it go. Look what you've done. Yeah, I'll put it back for you. Don't worry. I'm a very responsible hey kid. I should be Amelie instead. And this is just kind of the world that One More Multiverse is built. There's a lot of stuff going on. As you can see, this is like a fully realized first floor. Beautiful. There's a second floor with, you know, personal rooms and stuff. There's a foyer. There's a basement. There's all sorts of stuff happening all over the place. There's 4 different outsides based on the season. And yeah, here, if you want to click on that DVD on the click on the black jar, right there.
The black vase.
The vase, that's what it is. Yeah.
The big black bowling pin is worth 10 more points than the little one. Say, kid said, gripping the ball in both hands.
So there's a lot of like Stardew Valley, or not Stardew Valley, like a what do you call Earthbound style little like lore snippets hidden throughout the bed and breakfast dollhouse. I kind of think of it as a dollhouse. That's not necessarily the best marketing term, but that's what it is in my head. This poor door. Don't know what happened to your door.
It's okay.
It happens. Doors do that. And we can go and find, like, for example, over here, if you look at Gertrude's backpack, you can see there's that's where we can put mementos when we do chapters.
Oh, look at that.
We can just kind of like goof around in here and explore. And like I know people who have just been like having a great deal of fun building like, you know, new rooms and add-ons to their bed and breakfast. It's just like an activity, like a Sims kind of moment. But you can also, you know, obviously play the game. When you do that, we're gonna like click on select chapter right here.
Oh, sick.
And we can, you know, from there choose a chapter that we have unlocked. There's a bit more in here because there's a couple of OMM exclusive chapters. We can get in there, select. Let's do Sal's written to play. You know, it's got all the rules and stuff in there. We can select it.
Wait, where?
And then we'll, you know, we choose a character to play. You know, you can select a If you click on Gertrude and select her.
Oh, cool. Now I have main journeys doodles. I learn all about
Yeah.
Gertrude.
I'm going to click select up on the top there, and you can flip through and learn more about Gertrude, and then we can, let's play. And we're able to pull out the rules for, Sal's play right here. We can plop stuff like that out. We can grab, in this case, the tokens we need. We can put those tokens into the little drawer that we have on the bottom left. We can draw anywhere, like we can draw here.
What the?
Or we can draw onto the sticker, in which case it also updates the rules.
Whoa,
And
that's crazy.
yeah. We can place down assets if we would like. Just kind of spawn in. If I'm playing, Captain Redtooth, maybe I give myself a pirate hat to wear. It kind of is a feeling of a bit like a dollhouse, which is why I keep using that metaphor, but it also just feels very much like, you're playing a game, but in this, kind of like if the battle mat was laid out in front of you like a Stardew Valley, video game environment.
Yeah, of course.
And then once we go through the chapter, we gotta bring those whoopsies, we've got our materials, we've got all our stuff. At the end of the chapter, we can click housekeeping, which lets us do things like, you can open up your journey to see what you've done. It pulls you right there to like see if it's relevant. You can open up, other tracks to put places to like help out the bed and breakfast. And you can open up shelves and put a sticker right in there.
This is so nuanced. I can't believe this is like.
Oh,
I don't
one more thing I forgot to mention.
Go ahead.
You can take Polaroids.
What?
You can take a Polaroid.
I'm sorry. When?
I can label the Polaroid, with in this case, let me get in there and just, what do you call, Wintry Stream, and then if you want, you can put that Polaroid like on your character sheet in your doodles.
That's actually crazy. Hold on, wait. I want to try that. Doodles.
Drag the Polaroid, and there it is. Now it's in there.
That's so
and
cool.
When I click over to Gertrude in your ledger, I can see, you've got this Polaroid in there. You can be taking notes in there, whatever you want to do.
It's actually insane. Wow.
And then we can click ready to go. If you want to also click ready to go in the housekeeping section, we can tidy up the bed and breakfast, which just kind of like removes spare game materials lying around.
Got it.
And that's what it's like that's kind of the interface for playing. We can just kind of hop, obviously, you play the chapter, but it's incredible the amount of infrastructure they've built that allows us to kind of play around. And what's fun is things like the stick you've left remain between chapters. So sometimes there's these moments where it's like, oh man, like we have to literally physically clean the bed and breakfast a little bit because someone spawned a bunch of barn animals. And now we have to delete all the barn animals, which is like a very charming feeling. It becomes this like little digital space that you're responsible for upkeeping.
Also, this is just one floor, right? Am I mistaken?
Let me let's go to the second floor.
Second floor.
Let's go visit. I'll drag you over there. Oops. There we go. There's the second floor, which we're now on.
Oh wow.
You can see very, similar vibes, but also, each of the residents have their own rooms. And then there's spare rooms for guests. A lot of the, third, fourth, fifth floors are all empty rooms for guests if you want to like model rooms for them. You can go and find Yazeba's study or poke around into various places. And then I'm gonna actually take you to one of my favorite little maps. There's a lot of really beautiful maps here. like wonderful spots to hang out. I want to
Sure.
take you. Do you want to come to hang out at high school with me?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds fun.
So there are some levels. Later chapters involve some pretty interesting places. And in order to not model an entire high school, which would both be a logistical nightmare and also a waste of time because it's a late chapter, instead what they did is they built these spaces that are partially real, partially abstracted. So
Oh.
there is this sketch art that is around, but also these real environments, though real by OMM standards, and they move between them. So these kind of levels exist in this more abstract dream space. And if we're playing the high school chapter where we're kids going to high school, we can just expand on this, right? We could be like, oh, maybe, we want to, have a scene in the science room, and we can just draw out the science room, probably a little bit better than I'm doing it right now. But, we can kind of sketch that out however we want, and build that space out, and it's kind of part of this sketchy dream zone, this intermediary between theater of the mind and physical, like the kind of the what you see is what you get physical reality of One More Multiverse.
Yeah, this is really there's an artistic touch to this where it's like both practical and very aesthetic,
Yeah.
which is nice.
The lead engineer is a fellow indie game designer, and many of the people who worked on the project were deeply passionate. Like, this was, I cannot express enough, a labor of love between every single person involved on every level of Yazebas. Yazebas is the kind of thing that you get when you get 30, 40 creatives who are all deeply passionate and in love with a thing and willing to make something, and also given the kind of like support and resources and fandom to be able to make a thing without kind of having to like stress about like getting underpaid or getting crunched or whatever, but are instead able to make the thing as they honestly see it, and you get some really beautiful stuff like this. Here, I'm gonna take you to one more level.
Of course.
I'm gonna bring you with me. Let's go. Let's go enjoy the backyard. I think that'll be a good place to just hang out. And yeah, and so that's Yazeba's One More Multiverse. As mentioned, I've become really familiar with its whole process, but different, it's still very easy to navigate if you're newer to it. And learning the tricks of it can have a steep learning curve, but when you learn them, it is a really unique way of playing.
Yeah, this is incredible work. This is such a labor of love that I get. Oh, this fireplace is beautiful. There's, it's just like, I can feel myself getting lost in something like this. I can understand the appeal this brings, and a great number of people who would very much enjoy just this almost a sandbox-esque world that is already like drawn and detailed for you to just explore and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like speaking to not only my storyteller mind but also like my map maker mind. It's just like, this is so fun.
The in my own verse and other people's verses, it's been a lot of fun of hanging out on, like just decorating guest rooms, right? Like, you've got, you've got Percival Combustion, the lava elemental, who wants to be a baker. What does his room look like? You've got Yola Oleander, the gossipy old lady plant spirit. What does her room look like? You've got, oh God, you have Brem, a Neptunian octopus popcorn smuggler. What does Zir room look like? So there's a lot of fun to be had, and just or like people have been making their own assets, because you can just upload pixel art into OMM,
Right.
and you can just make your own guests. And my favorite one I had a great deal of fun with earlier today. Someone made Goku as a guest.
Goku.
who Goku, and like the joke is that Goku's whole journey is about finding someone who can beat him. So every time someone introduces any new character, you have to ask, like, can they beat Goku? Which is just a delightful, character concept.
I think that's so fun. So fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, this is absolutely incredible. Um I don't know. Like, what do I have? What do I have left to say? Like, people who have witnessed the book, who have the ideas behind it, and who have seen the efforts that have gone into just creating this vast world that is not only in your imagination, but also real and tangible right here in One More Multiverse. This is something incredible, and I'm sure you and the team are immensely proud of this, and I'm very happy to be experiencing it.
I'm really glad to be able to show you around. It feels so satisfying to have a thing in your head for 4 years that you just cannot explain to anyone, no matter how hard you try. And one day, suddenly, you are able to just hand it to people and say, like, this is the thing I've been trying to tell you about
Right.
for years and years that I couldn't because it didn't exist. And now it does, and here it is.
Yeah, that must be so incredible.
It's very satisfying.
Anything you want to leave the audience with as we close out the stream? Maybe anything
No,
you want to plug, anyone you want to shout out, things like that.
I do want to shout out, of course, the entire rest of the team. M. Veselek is my co-creator. She wrote Wickedness, which is a truly phenomenal RPG, and also did the Witch class for, I believe, Dimension 20 was that project.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes,
I'm
M
listening to the
is
podcast right now. Yeah.
She's so smart. She is so brilliant. She did so much of the mechanical work on Yazeba's. I also want to shout out the other writers, Mercedes and Lily, Grubby, who did the layout and art direction, all of the artists, all of the editors, Avery, who did so many people did so many things. One More Multiverse, the soundtrack, Jordan making the soundtrack. It's been like a bonkers team. I also want to plug patreon.com/Possum Creek. Many of the folks who are in chat right now come from the Possum Creek Patreon. It's a super chill space for game designers. For like the price of $10 a year, you can come in and just get like a community of people who are excited to talk about game design and bounce ideas around with each other and like play games and like experiment. And you also get like first looks and like exclusive sneak peeks at what Possum Creek Games is up to. Because one of the most devastating things about being a game designer is that you always work in the future. The things that you are the most excited about are the things which everyone will find out about in a few years from now. And the stuff you have to be plugging is the stuff that you wrote a few years ago. So if you want to get a taste of what Possum Creek is doing like right now, right, like what am I, J Dragon, currently up to, as opposed to like what was I up to a couple of years ago, the Patreon is a really good space for that. Yeah, that's just what I wanted. Also, check out Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. Give it a try. It's on the Humble Bundle right now. You can get One More Multiverse is on the Humble Bundle. You can get, like, for $25, you can get Yazeba's Blades in the Dark, Humblewood, and like an extra asset pack of weird monsters. So that's a great way to kind of experience this very interesting new way of playing RPGs that really feels like the first RPG VTT played that feels like it was made for a digital space instead of being awkwardly ham-fisted into the digital world. So, yeah.
It is absolutely incredible. Once again, you can find this game on One More Multiverse.itch.io/Yazebas, which gives you this game on One More Multiverse. Plus, it gives you the PDF. So you could experience the game any way you would like to. Thank you so much, Jay. Thanks so much for showing up. This is so great. I'm so glad to have talked to you and met you. This is a blessing, truly.
It was a delightful time. It was an absolute pleasure to be here. And it was a pleasure getting to talk to folks. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JDragon. Or I'm the most notable JDragon. There's not a lot with the last name. Besides the Lego Ninjago toy. But yeah, come check out what we're all about. I know at the beginning of all this, there was someone in the chat who was a bit stressed about, games that are indie versus more traditional or more like, what's kind of at the edge of things or what's kind of at the center. And, I hope that Yazeba's can be something that can bridge that gap, that can be, something really new and unlike most tabletop RPGs. But also, it's a big, weird, beautiful thing that's had a lot of effort and care put into it. It's not, some, so, it's a really, I hope it can be something really interesting and unique.
Okay. And with that, thank you guys for tuning in. And we're going to call it a night here. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.